have Vincent Valerio is on the phone from New York. Vinny, can you hear us?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, good. Okay, so it's been pretty interesting. They've been working, talking about Wonka and what she did so far. And what we're going to do is keep you on the phone, and if you have any questions, then you could just break in.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
You know, Professor Schramm at MIT once said, ideas either find champions or dies, and champions must display heroic quality. And I appreciate Gerald's heroic quality. I appreciate yours, Anthony, and the stations, and everyone here. And the reason why I'm saying that, I've been kicking this idea around, and particularly after last week when I spoke with Vinny and some of his questions. You know, what we've got to do is there are some folks that live in New York City that have members that are unlawfully and unconstitutionally imprisoned in Nevada. And these folks have spoken to me on long distance the other day, and they're contemplating on filing a federal lawsuit against the state of Nevada and naming all these officials that think they have absolute immunity and everything else. But just the fair fact of naming them turns them into defendants. And so what they're looking at doing is claiming mental pain, suffering, and anguish and unlawful imprisonment of a family member. So they filed a lawsuit, and I'll just say, let's pick New York for an example. They filed
Because Vinny's from there, right?
Well, that would be great. So we file it in federal court. Then, after the filing, and it gets presented to the judge with all the irrefutable evidence and the facts in the form of a brief. You know, we brief it, right, Gerald? And so we briefed the federal lawsuit. Maybe it'll be a 1983 or something in that nature, right,
Yes.
Gerald?
We have one in there now for 344 pages that Anthony.
That's my federal complaint.
Okay, so anyway, we file in New York. We have that family file in federal court. Then we ask the family to go back with their attorneys and ask the judge to issue to the United States Marshal's Office an order to come out here and get this family member out of this prison that is unlawfully and unconstitutionally imprisoned, held there by laws that are known fact have failed, and by judges who have committed tyranny, usurpation, and perjury of their own oaths of office, and see if we cannot bring some of them back there into a federal court of justice and see if we can't get some things resolved where we start tightening up and we straighten up this judicial system. Now, Benny, what do you think about that idea?
Well, first question to that idea is, are the persons at that time of being brought back to New York, you mentioned federal marshals, so I'm assuming they're still in custody.
They're being held against their will.
By the federal court.
Right.
Is it the federal court that they're being held by?
No, the state courts.
State court. Now, why would the U.S. Marshals get involved? Which, Vinny, aren't you deputized by the federal marshals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the reason being is that your family member is actually a citizen of New York, not Nevada. He's being held in Nevada. That doesn't make him a citizen of Nevada. He's being held in Nevada by unconstitutional, unlawful laws. And if you have unconstitutional, unlawful laws and you're being held in prison, are you not being held against your will? Isn't that some form of kidnapping?
Appear to be.
Then, do you think that would be a form of kidnapping?
First, the reason I have a hard time with that, guys, is I understand your premise, but the sheer fact that they're being held under the force of law, at least is what we know it to be, and currently in the state of Nevada, there has to be legal precedent to bring them back to New York.
Well, that's why
and
the
if the federal
family
judge says to bring them back to New York, yeah, I could see a U.S. Marshal taking charge of that.
Well, if the people can prove in a federal court in New York that the Nevada revised statutes are not valid, then it would become a problem, and it could work that way, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because New York
I
can
would
challenge
imagine
the
it would all be
proclamation.
up to a judge,
It would be up to a judge,
a federal judge.
which that's where you got to
Yeah.
go, because Nevada is so far out of control that we have to have intervention from outside the state.
Now, you have to look at the unity of the proclamation that was issued by President Lincoln. when he issued the proclamation for Nevada to join the Union, become the 33rd state on October 31st of 1864. Prior to that, President Lincoln issued a proclamation that the state would form a more unified constitution. Right, Gerald?
Yeah.
And with that,
Okay.
they would then become the 33rd member of the Union of the United States of America. Because of this type of contamination and tyranny and usurpation that's going on in such a state of Nevada, there may be other states that have done this. We don't know. We haven't done the research and due diligence, but we do know one thing. Nevada don't have proper laws. And these laws failed, and they may appear to exist, but they exist under the presumption of law, not the knowledge of law. And we now have the
See,
knowledge
that's
of law.
what's fascinating about your argument.
And what part is that, Vin?
Really, the whole premise in which he's presenting his argument is fascinating. Because if that's true, then a whole lot of cases have to be heard again.
Probably almost all the cases have to be reheard again. Or what happens? Like we were talking before you came on, these people were coerced into taking plea deals for stuff they didn't do under statutes that are not valid.
If they stand up and say, I did it, you say coerced. But they stood up in front of a court and said that they did it. Now, I mean, that's a problem.
But here's what is fascinating to that extent, Vinny, is that when you can prove that you do have an unconstitutional law and an unconstitutional statute, I don't care what you sign, you can never waiver consent to it. It fails.
I happen to agree. I happen to agree with that.
Okay, so they took a plea deal under a statute that is not valid, so they could sign that they killed JFK. It doesn't hold up in a real court of law because this is not a real court of law here.
That is true. That's absolutely true.
Well,
The courts lack subject matter jurisdiction as we talk on this mic tonight.
And
They need to realize that.
And they are coerced because you could see people, if you spend time in these courts here, like the Flag Man and all these other guys, you could see the guy cringing when he says that, he pleads guilty. I seen people say, I didn't want to plead guilty, but my lawyer turned around and told me if I don't take this deal, I'm going to rot here for 18 months before I get a trial.
Well, it gets better than that. You got the lawyer who's, incidentally, Vinny, I don't know if you know this or not, but the DA in these counties, they pay the public defender's office. You know that? The DA actually writes the check to the public defender.
Yeah, remember, Vin, when I told you the story about Coonsey's got all these public defenders like Harry Keene and all of this? They have to give them guilties because they would lose their jobs because he pulls the strings here.
Now,
huge conflict of interest.
Now watch this. Now you've got, that's right, and I found this out. Now watch this. Now you got this public defender standing beside this poor ignorant guy that maybe committed a crime and he deserves his punishment. There's no question about it. But certainly not abusive punishment. Now he's standing there and the judge says, well, Mr. Willing, nobody coerced you now. Nobody coerced you into signing this. You've done this on your own free will. And the attorneys lean over, say yes, say yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, Mr. Willing, you understand what you're saying. You signed here, and you have no argument with that. Say no, say no. You understand what I'm saying? Isn't that a form of coercion?
Yes, I would say so, since he's an officer of the court. His attorney is an officer of the court.
Well, that's what's going on here by the masses.
Well, Vinny knows a lot about that because we talked about Harry Keene and with Coonsey with 87% conviction rating, and Harry Keene. I was one of the guys with the help. Vinny was the guy from New York that found Colony Insurance versus Harry Keene, and that's what I took to the commissioners to get the commissioners to get rid of Harry Keene. So Vinny's been on top of this for a long time.
Vinny, I want to take you to this about Dina Titus and Kathleen Cortez Masto, the former Attorney General. And I want to take you to what's called Senate Bill 358. And what happened was Dina Titus had put forth a bill, got it passed into law, signed by Governor Kenny Gwynn, that had to deal with these 2,500 acres around Red Rock Canyon. And the reason being is she owned a lot of property around there, and they wanted to have certain protections, certain controls.
Who owned the property, Cortez Masto or Dina Titus?
No, Dina Titus.
Dina Titus was one of our senators here, a congressperson.
But Cortez Masto represented her as a respondent. Now, Senate Bill 58 was found that it violated Article 4, Section 25 of the Nevada Constitution, which has established a system of county government that is not uniform throughout the state. And then Senate Bill 358 would otherwise violate the Article 4, Section 20, 21, 25 Nevada Constitution because it fell within an applicable exception and so remained valid. So the Ninth Circuit justices, they answered the first three questions in the affirmative and the last question in the negative because it went to Nevada Supreme Court and they had to ask the Ninth Circuit to give them that opinion. And the Ninth Circuit said that they found that, yes, that passed bill into law does violate the Constitution and the law, and they certified the questions in the negative, and they found that the bill, and they called it even a revision bill, Senate, the same as Senate Bill number 2, is the same thing. They passed a copy of an engrossed bill, wasn't even a bill, and they used a joint concurrent resolution with it, mandated by the Constitution under Article 4, Section 17, first deals with the single subject matter. They took that joint concurrent resolution and they commingled all these passages, repealing statutes, making new statutes, memorializing a senator that died, and then congratulating this guy that did all this foul work on these NRS statutes. So they commingled it and they violated the single subject rule. Then they went on, they violated Article 4, Section 23, which mandates and commands that the enactment language must be upon the face of the document or the bill in order for it to become valid law.
Right.
We have the joint concurrent resolutions that they used. We have the Ninth Circuit Court of Opinions. We have an Attorney General 85 opinion on our favor. We have a law historian and a book author, Charlie Wiseman, who wrote The Authority of Law, and he addresses the issues of Nevada and its corruption on page 17 of that book. You can even acquire it on Amazon. Everybody can get it. And we have it. And all these people and all the Shepardized case law and research that we've done absolutely proves that 12,875 human beings in prisons in Nevada and jails, well, not counting the jails, are held there by unlawful and unconstitutional laws that involve stealth fraud and ongoing long-arm fraud. And Vinny, the long-arm fraud comes in because what they did in 1951 affects the people in prison today.
It's never been ratified, I understand.
Never been ratified or voted by the citizens, Vinny. Never.
Really?
And not only that,
Yeah.
Vinny, Article 5, Section 20 mandates and commands that the Secretary of State must have at all times in its possession the bills and the journals and the resolutions and the taking of the yeas and nays and lay their hands upon them when required. The Secretary of State sent me a letter and said, we don't have any of that. You got to go to the Legislative Council Bureau. So we're thinking that the Legislative Council Bureau is part of the legislature, right? It's an independent, private group running our government, controls the treasuries. They even write the checks for everybody. They change the bills. They write the bills. They write the laws. They do it all. And
How's that possible?
Did you hear that? How is that possible?
Because nobody pays any attention in Nevada.
because
to the
this is
law.
the rogue state of Nevada.
Yeah.
And this
That
rogue,
is rogue. That's beyond description rogue.
these people need to go to jail.
There's where I keep yelling about corrupt criminal enterprise and the shadow government. These people that are citizens of this state think we have a government that's working for us, and we have a corrupt criminal enterprise using our tax dollars to do whatever they want.
Now, what they did,
Well,
Benny,
you guys think New York is liberal? You guys are tyrannical.
Yeah, see, let me tell you, Vinny, we have conversations on a daily basis, Vinny and I, about how could that be? They couldn't get away with this in New York. But they
No
do.
way.
Yeah. Okay.
But New York can hold Nevada to the fire and say, Nevada, you're not going to get away with it either, with our citizens having their sons and daughters in your prisons and being held there unlawfully and unconstitutionally, and you causing us mental pain, suffering, and anguish of our citizens. We're not going to deal with that no more. You corrupt people are going to straighten up, or we're going to come after you, and we're going to bring you to New York, and we're going to bring you to these federal courts, and we're going to prosecute you.
See, the problem here is Nevada, especially Las Vegas, is a very transient community. People are in and out all the time. A lot of people come here, they retire, older people, they blow all their money and they got to get out of here. So there's people in and out of here all the time. And that's what the problem is. Most people don't live here long enough to even pay attention to what's going on.
There's no saying.
What about the legislators in Carson City?
They're part of the club.
Yeah, they're part of the club and the backroom door
Don't
deals
they
that they
get to
do.
vote on anything?
No, they just shepherds in disguise of the little sheep, And
They're told what to do so they can keep their job, Vin.
the governor wears the suit, but let me tell you, the LCB, Rick Combs, Linda Ree Rhodes, and Keith Powers, the chief counsel, legislative counsel, tells them what color the suit they wear.
Explain to the listeners what LCB stands for.
Legislative Council Bureau. They have no relationship to any three of the government. They write laws against the citizens and the bills and the passings of them and all. They lobby. They control all the purse strings. And let me tell you what else they do. They even control the buildings and the keys and the maintenance of the state buildings. And they took over the state printing company, too. They even control the state printing company, Vinny.
Vin, could you believe that?
So therefore, your state police are actually enforcing laws that are illegal?
What state police do we have?
The State Highway
Which are the
Patrol.
Nevada
Oh, that's the
Highway
state.
Patrol?
Our friend from what do you call? That's Michael.
Metro Police,
Michael Kolpak from. He used to be one of
We
them.
have Joe Lombardo up there,
Oh, Vin, could you believe that this is like a three-ring? Ringling Brothers got nothing over on this
Now,
place.
Vinny, let me tell you why they did this. This Statute Revision Commission created these statute books. They took illegally and copyrighted government public documents, which U.S. Government Works just sent me a document and said it is illegal to copyright public government documents. They belong to the citizens and the public, but not to these guys. They took them over, the LCB did. They copyrighted them through the state on the surface. See, they got all this stuff and they're hiding behind the windows of the state. And they're no relationship to the state at all. And what they did, they sold off these statute books and all these amendments that they make. And then they went out and they made a deal with Matthew Bender and Company and LexisNexis. They went in, they changed the federal constitution without getting the authority and put all this stuff in it with the Nevada, see? And not only that, they tampered with the Nevada Constitution. And then they turned around and sold off all these statute books and they pocketed millions of dollars that don't have to be accountable.
What kind of crime do you think that is, Vin?
It's a criminal enterprise.
Usurpation.
That's definitely an enterprise.
Now,
That's RICO.
That's RICO, yes.
Yeah. Now, the way we got to get to this is we got to find out who put Russell McDonald in position.
I'm going to tell you who he is. His name is Frank Helmick. He started it. Then came Russell. Then came Jeff Springmeyer. And then after that came Linda Inroads and Rick Combs. And Rick Combs is the director of all this LCB now. See, here's what happened, Benny, real quick. In May of 1951, they formed the Statute Revision Commission. They put these three judges, Milton Bant, Edgar Ether, and Charles Merrill on the board. And then they took this Russell McDonald, who they claimed he was Nevadian born. We found out he was born in California. He never was a native. We can't even find out he was ever a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University. And we don't even think he ever graduated from Stanford University either.
So they claimed all of that.
But anyway, they went in, they changed, they repealed all the statutes, they wrote their own laws and their own statutes, and they wrote them around the things they wanted to do. So then the same guy that was the director of the Statute Revision Commission became the Legislative Council. And on July 1st of 1963, they abolished the Statute Revision Commission and they transferred all the legislative power to the Legislative Council, Russell McDonald. Then Russell McDonald took the Legislative Council and made it a division of the Legislative Council Bureau and then became the director of that. Then he signed a private contract with the legislative committee, which Kirkpatrick and all them were part members of, and Harry Reid and all of them. And the committee ties into the legislative council, so they thought that that would insulate them and that they could hide all this stealth fraud. So they have no direct relationship to any one of 3 branches of government. That makes them a
Let me
fourth
tell you
level.
something. These guys got nothing on the mafia.
That's why I told you they just put suits on and went inside government.
Listen, the mafia would love to be able. Look, they have interest rates here at 158% in these payday loan places. The mob guys on the street in Brooklyn wish they could get that kind of money.
Well, they're banned
Oh, yeah,
from it in New
definitely.
York. New York bans that kind of activity.
Right. Yeah, but I'm
That's
telling you,
illegal here.
can you actually believe all the stuff that's going on here, and nobody really knows? It's got to be a select few to realize. It's got to be all the really controlling people realize what's going on. The average, I don't think that the average commissioner of Nye County has a clue on what's going on.
Vinny, I have 5 memorandums I can make available to you with all the irrefutable evidence of all the bills, all of the joint concurrent resolutions, all of the documents, all the Shepardized case law, all the research, all the Attorney General opinions that favor our side, everything. Okay, it goes all the way back, starting from 1951 forward, that I can make available to you for inspection.
I would love to see that, Jerry. I was talking with Anthony about something, and he mentioned it tonight also, about people being threatened by their own attorneys, to be kept in jail for 18 months. There's no such thing as bail hearings. There's no such thing as speedy trial.
If you don't know what your
hearings,
if you don't know what your rights are, they could take anything away from you. They could tell you anything. If you don't know the law, they could tell you the sun's coming up tomorrow because I let it come up. There's the problem.
Vinny, let me share this with you. You'll find this very interesting. This just happened to me on February the 9th. Now, Vinny, you know when the grand jury issues an indictment, basically they found you guilty. And they issued an indictment, and you were indicted for that. And that passes down to the petite jury, which is the jury of your peers to see if you're guilty or not if you elect to have a jury trial. Now, how do you go in and you throw away all the other sentences and you hold this hearing, and the judge amends the indictment without going back to the grand jury and says, oh, the indictment may have deficiencies in it, but you waived those. And we're going to give you an Alford plea, and we're going to assign you a new crime, but you don't have to admit to it, but then we're going to give you time served and you're finished. Is that fair justice?
I think that's cover your butt justice.
Well, Vinny, that's what happened to me. They took back 17 sentences. They gave me 28 to 64 years for a death sentence, and they gave me a death sentence for real estate forgery and crimes that I never ever committed in my life, never been to the recorder's office, couldn't even tell you how to get there. But it took me 8.5 years of fighting and finally got the Nevada Supreme Court on July 15th of 2011 to reverse my case. I didn't get heard until February the 9th, 5+ years later, February 9th of this year. And the judge finally invented this crime. It was a new judge because I sued the other one and turned him in the Ethics Commission. I knew they were going to go along with it and say, well, he has immunity and all. But it worked, and it created a conflict, so I got rid of him, and I got a new judge, which gave me an opportunity at least to try and save myself and what little bit of life I have left in me to get back out. I'm 64 years old.
Okay.
So you would have been languishing in jail had you not done all this research.
Exactly.
He actually did this research to help others because he thought he was going to be there the rest of his life. And by helping others, he found out what he could do for himself.
It's the biggest discovery in Nevada history.
Now, we're down to like 1 minute. What I want to do next
Being
week...
held by the legal circles.
What I want to do next week is I want you to come back and I want you to try to put something together that the people that are listening to this program could do to help themselves or their family members right now.
And I think I've come up with a solution, and I think if we can initiate that, and we could initiate it from New York, from some of the families that I know that live in New York, that have suffered through some of their children here that are in prison that are actually innocent, but been railroaded into prison and given sentences that are unbelievable by these judges.
Now, some of these
can do something.
people that you helped actually went through Lane and Wonka.
That's exactly right. The ones I just mentioned here.
And you never were here before, but now you know who they are because you actually help people overturn cases that were in front of them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Were these people that had previous records?
Some of them never had records.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
You got to forgive my doubtfulness because of the business that I'm in.
No, I want you to emphatically doubt me, and we'll get along fine.
all right, guys. I'm gonna let you go, Vin. I'm gonna shut the show down, and we're gonna talk about this next week. Thanks, Vin, for calling
I'll
in.
be getting you those memorandums, Vinny.
Yeah, we'll put PDF files and send it over there. Anybody has any questions, you could email me at, what is the new email? fightingnvcorruption@gmail.com. Fighting Nevada Corruption, which Nevada is NV. So fightingnvcorruption@gmail.com. Get them to me this week. We'll answer your questions right here on the radio. We're here to help you, and we're going to stop this corruption soon. Good night, everybody.